I think the most stressful part of all of it was the feeding element, because when they're so little, no matter what you're doing, unless you're fully breastfeeding, which I can't speak on that because I don't have that experience, but no matter how you're feeding your baby, there's so many logistics into like sanitizing, extra bottles, extra formula, or if you're pumping, like how do I clean my pump parts? What do I do with the milk? All of that was extremely stressful. And I truly like kind of just put it off because I didn't even know what to do. And we like waited pretty last minute to figure out like, okay, what are the rules associated with like pumping on a flight? What do they have to provide for you? And at that point, I was primarily pumping and giving my son breast milk. We weren't really doing formula, but we brought it just in case. And I'm so glad we did, because I forgot to put ice in our ice chest because, life, and you're at the airport and everything's stressful. And so everything that I had pumped, I would give him, but everything extra, which I didn't make very much, I was planning to put on my ice cooler. And we were on a British Airways. The thing about British people is they don't have ice in anything. Like they drink lukewarm everything, which is gross, but whatever. So they didn't really have much ice on the plane, and they're allowed to, I guess, say no to me. And so I had no way of storing the milk I had pumped for him,
Oh my gosh.
or storing then the milk that I had prepared to bring with us. So that was the biggest disaster and very annoying, because it was kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? And then they're like, why don't you just breastfeed your baby? And I'm like, well, wouldn't that be great?
Wait, did someone really say that to you?
Yeah, it was a guy, so like of course he doesn't understand, but one of the flight attendants was like, why can't you just like breastfeed him? I was like, why can't I don't know. Why
Gosh, in an
can't I?
ice situation, I would have been like,
Yeah.
and I would have been
That was the worst part about traveling. Honestly, just that one singular experience.
that's I think a really tricky part about flying versus driving is like, at least when you're driving, you don't have to worry as much about packing as expertly. And you're in control. You can stop, you can pull over, you can do whatever you need to a certain extent, I would imagine. But I agree with you, Kira. The hardest part for me was the gear and the logistics of the feeding. Similar to you, Kira, I am an exclusive pumper. So breastfeeding, but with bottled breast milk that I'm pumping, but we are combo feeding. So I was bringing formula and breast milk supplies, and having the flexibility of both was great, but it kind of like doubled the amount of supplies. I had one huge bag of like my regular pump, my wearable pump in case I wanted that instead, so many bottles, so many formula things, like extra formula. Like I didn't even really deal with, because you were on a longer haul flight, obviously, I didn't deal with having to pump and then store. Like I pumped before we left the house. Any bottles that I had, I knew she was going to consume within 4 hours. So I could just like feed it to her in real time on the go, not have to like cool it, store it. So yeah, all of that is a lot. Or for anyone, traveling without baby too, and then you're pumping and you're bringing breast milk back, and it's hard with the refrigeration aspect to store. And even when you're driving too, I don't know what your feeding journey has been like, Brooke, but walk us through a little bit of the feeding logistics of a drive.
Yeah. So I breastfeed exclusively still. So it's kind of, to be honest, just because pumping didn't work for me, I would have loved, honestly, to have that. Quite a few of my friends the exact same time as me were able to do that. And they were kind of given tips like, this will help you a lot. And I'm like, I love that, but none of them will work for me. None of those tips are going to apply for me. And we had not introduced formula at all or tried it yet on our first trip. Our first trip was when she was 3 months old, just about to turn 3 months. And it was that first 12-hour, one-way road trip. And, I didn't think about, preparations before of like, let's just bring formula in case I need to. And in the end, that was like probably the biggest thing I learned is, just have it as a backup, because at that point in time, we didn't know whether or not formula was going to work for us or combo feeding was going to work. But being able to have that as a backup would have been great, because first baby, don't know what I'm doing still, go home, luckily we were going to where we're from. I'm from Kansas. So going back home from Texas to Kansas was less stressful in terms of knowing what we were going to, to be around. Not like we were going on a trip. Like I have no idea the environment we're in or anything like that. We were around friends and family and back home. So that was kind of a comforting thing. But we ended up being too busy and everyone's like, well, I want to see the baby. Let's go here and let's go there. You introduce this baby to everybody and you're just going between all these different places. And learning to say no is always a hard thing for me. And so I had overcommitted to, a lot of things. And so my supply went down significantly while we were on the trip. I wasn't eating regularly. I was not drinking enough water, enough fluids. And so my supply that was pretty much just sufficient enough. I wasn't an excess. I'm not an excess producer of milk. And so it was just enough at the time. And then when I was like starting to really, my supply was going down, I got more stressed. So it became a mixture of my baby is hungry. I don't have any formula. We've never tried formula. And I also cannot produce enough. She's going to starve. Like it got dramatic feeling, and one or two panic attacks, later with having a screaming colicky baby because she was pretty colicky her first 12 weeks too. It ended up just, getting to the point where we went to the store, got formula, and it kind of soothed the whole issue. And I'm like, wow, if I would have just brought some formula just in case, it could have helped a lot. So yes, breastfeeding exclusively is difficult. It's great in sometimes because I'm not worried, I don't have to worry about the refrigeration aspect or anything like that, but it definitely has other aspects that I did not anticipate having. I always kept thinking like, well, I am her food. So it'll be great. I'll just feed her whenever I need to. And in theory that works. But then when you're out in the real world, that doesn't work exactly as, planned. So that was kind of the situation for me on our first trip and pretty much every other trip after. But I did learn to bring some formula and drink enough water.